up, everybody? Welcome to Kobold Chats today. It has been a wonderful week. We got our playtest 4 is out. It came out last week. If you haven't seen that, you can pick it up over on Tales of the Valiant. It's got our kobolds and our lovely small folk. A lot of people are asking if the dragonkin are supposed to be dragonborn. No, dragonkin are swobolds, is what I would tell you. It's our beefy little kobolds, and in the future, if you didn't see the announcement, we will be looking at adding dragonborn in. It's just not in the core books that are coming out, but it's something we're looking at for the future. But we have a lot to do today, a lot to go over. How is everybody doing? Are we all doing well? Have we had a good week? Are we all ready for chats today? We got a couple of things to go over, and then we're going to be diving into monster weaknesses, a new release on the store. And then, yeah, I think that's going to be most of today's episode for this one. And then I got something special coming up for next week, as long as it gets to me in time. We're going to be doing some special stuff over the course of the rest of this month, heading into Gen Con. So let's just go into news, everybody. I think that probably makes the most sense here, right? All right, everybody. So news today, we got a bunch of stuff to go over. I'm just going to bring it all on the screen for you. So news, obviously going to be a Gen Con. If you got a chance to sign up for one of our tables, you're going to be able to pick up one of our lovely Tales of the Valiant miniatures for free for playing at the table. I think we have 120 games being ran over the course of Gen Con. And if you didn't get into that, don't worry, there might be some other surprise ways to get them, and they will be something that we sell in the future. It's just something we wanted to do for everybody as kind of like a thank you for joining us on this amazing raising of the flag. On top of that, Tome Beast is out. You saw me put that in just a few moments ago. The revised version is out. That also brings me to today and why we're going to be doing monster weaknesses. I wanted to kind of level up the book that is already amazing into something a little more. It's another one of our lovely $4.99 PDFs that's come out. I think last week it released, and I wanted to go over. I think that these little releases that we have, like all the Book of Blades and stuff, are great little things to add to your arsenal when you're a player or a GM, depending on what it is you're doing on your side of the table. So we'll be at Gen Con. I will be there. A lot of the other team will be there. Your favorite faces like Dot and Wolfgang and Celeste are all going to be there as well. We have a live show while we're there. We have panels while they're there. I'll be hosting some of them. I will be running other ones. So hoping to meet some of you. If you're going to be at Gen Con, come say hi. I'll be at a booth a couple of the days. Not quite sure what those are going to be, but you'll see me running about, interviewing some people and doing some fun stuff while we're there. Most of Tales of the Valiant, Tales of the Valiant, Valiant Soil members are going to be there from the live show. And if you missed any of those 4 episodes, I'm going to be doing a full replay of them all on a Friday over here on Twitch, in case you missed any of the YouTube ones on Wednesday nights. It's gonna be kind of fun. I'm doing something special with that. I got a new camera set up for it that's ready to go. A bunch of little things, but I don't want to spoil it quite yet. So other than that, is there anything else that any questions or anything before we dive into the lovely monster stuff? You got any questions? While you're thinking, I am gonna showcase one more thing that you may not be aware of. There is a sale this month. Instead of Prime Day, we got our Monster Madness sale. In case you've missed that, Monster Madness is pretty awesome. 20% off select monster titles, creature codexes, virtual tabletops from Foundry, Tome of Beast 2, the layers. If you've never picked up a layers, by the way, the layers stuff is pre-built monster layers with layer actions and fun things like that. I can tell you that the Druid playtest is pretty awesome. If you back the Kickstarter, you have access to those things already. Tome of Beast 2 is on here as well, just in case you missed that. Yeah. So we will... Let me pause the news for a second. Let me give you a little reason as to why. So I'm going to go over the Ranger and the Druid playtest, but I thought it only fair to do it after the survey is done for those. That was something special we did in advance, and it comes with people who backed a Kickstarter. So I didn't want to put it here and go over the whole thing and feel like we slighted our amazing backers that we have. So instead, as soon as that goes into surveys done, I'm going to do it on the show here. So don't worry, we're gonna go over it live here. We may even build one live because I really want to build a Ranger live, but we'll put it up to a poll. We'll let everybody decide that. That seems like the right thing to do. So we did the Kobolds and we did the Small Folk last week, and then when this closes, I'll do our 2 new classes. And those classes, by the way, just to give a little teaser, they're 1 to 10. And the new Ranger and the new Druid feel like what I believe a lot of people want them to be. I know I am happy. The Ranger is phenomenal. But as soon as the survey closes, we'll go over that stuff. We do have the Monster Madness sale. On top of that, Toma Beast is up, which I put in. It is available and shipping from our new warehouse now, which is pretty sweet. This is the same as the first one. We've just updated it to fit our dress code, so to speak. It's a little more organized. Things are a little easier to be. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And then obviously today we're going to be going over monster weaknesses. It is $4.99. I'll put it in chat once now. I'll do it in towards the end of the show. And we'll get started on this right now. I'm pretty excited for this, to be honest with you. I love monster stuff. Quick question from the audience. Yes, will the alpha be 1 to 10? I'm not allowed to say, Frog, but I would think that is an astute question. That is a very astute question. I'm not allowed to say anything. But you're smart. So we have the new PDF that we're going to look over. How do I want to explain this? We're going to do some highlighting in it. We're going to go over things you can use as a GM. It's compatible with 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, but it's obviously compatible with Tales of the Valiant as well. It's done by Daniel Kahn. I have ran I've GM'd a lot over the years. So I'm in my 40s. I've been running games since I was 11. I played 2 games as a player and decided that I wanted to tell stories. So I GM'd from 11 out, and I played games still in my early teens. I think about the time I got my driver's license, I started driving, and that meant that I could go to game stores, run games, and do stuff. I GM'd from pretty much then on out, and I've been a 99.99% of the time GM. So monsters are something that as I grew up and did college, I really love them. I'm a huge kaiju fan, for anyone who knows, obviously. I mean, got a flashy Godzilla in the background. I love kaiju. I love monsters. If you've ever seen my show Warpaint, we literally built monsters together, live on stream using Stream Loot cards. I love that you can build things that you've seen in movies, in myth, in read, in stories, in novels. I'm always a fan of that. But the thing that I always thought got a little drab with monsters, and there's not every game obviously, but that I felt like was missing, is the fact that monsters always felt like their weaknesses were the same. It was fire did more, or if it's undead, holy damage did more, but there's nothing really special. And then in, I think, early 2000s, D20 Modern came out, and my perspective changed. I think it changed because of Shadow Chasers that came out in the Polyhedron. And monsters started getting like really detailed weaknesses. And they would get things along the lines of like, you know, flaming toilet paper injured this person because they passed that way. And then you get something else that's special that is like, if you cut off their left pinky, they have to give you a wish. Or you meet something that is has to be salted and buried properly. And then later on in life, the Witcher stuff came out in the books, and then also playing the game, where there were special things you had to do to put things to rest and solve mysteries. And then Supernatural came out, TV series. And I started seeing a really cool trend of monsters having specific weaknesses to help you put them to rest, finally take them out, or to even capture them. I mean, hell, Pokemon uses Pokeballs to catch things. So there came this thing with weaknesses where I was like, I feel like we need it. And I've been using that mentality for a long time. That brings us to today. That brings us to monster weaknesses. And I think that this is something that is missing from 5e. A lot of companies have done it. This is our small version of it to kind of help you out. And I kind of think this is one of my favorite small press pieces. The Book of Blades, I love all of those, and this. So we're going to be highlighting this today. I'll pull up a highlighter. We're going to go through it. We're going to talk about it. We're going to see maybe if we have enough time. Maybe we'll build a monster to go along. But monster weaknesses, compatible with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons. It is a 16-page piece, similar to our Book of Blades series. Daniel Kahn is the creator for this. Cool little monster art piece in the front. A crossbow getting shot, you know, on the soft of the belly in between the armored plates. So let's see what we get here. I've looked through this. I have not highlighted it yet, but I'm very interested in what there is to be said. Like all of our books, we give our introduction. We talk about what monster weaknesses are. I kind of gave my idea of it, but they mentioned Lord of the Rings Two Towers. And just before the battle at Helm's Deep, the elven archer Legolas tells the comrades that the armor is weak at the neck and under the arms. It's a classic weakness, the soft points within the armor. And those soft points are things that I think we should probably, you know, look at. So I just realized this wasn't up for you. I'll do this one more time. So I want to clip this. Compatible with 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons Monster Weaknesses by Daniel Kahn. Great art piece. You didn't get to see it because I didn't have it on screen. And you can see them shooting in between the armor pieces. And that whole part we're talking about Helm's Deep and finding the weaknesses in armor. I think that's awesome. There's other versions they give samples of. Even in Legends of Vox Machina, they talk about, you know, the Book of Gilmore, how to defeat dragons. Really cool. They redacted the spoiler here. Kind of fun. And obviously things like Critical Role have leveled up what everyone has done, but they use weaknesses in that as well. And I think GMs, the older we get and the longer we've been running, we want more of that stuff, right? So, monster weaknesses. What do we have in here? We're talking about ankhegs, skeletons, things along those lines that fill the role of monster weaknesses. It's kind of a cool concept to think about. I love ankhegs, by the way. Ankhegs are easily one of my favorite, if not my favorite things, to be honest with you. They are those things that burrow and they jump out of the burrow and they can grab people. But they talk about reducing their AC when you knock them prone. And this is those ideas of weaknesses. That's kind of cool. Like, they are soft in the belly. This might not be a big deal. Things that are naturally armored also, that happens a lot. No. Skeletons are vulnerable to bludgeoning damage. We've known that for years. Fighters are proficient in all matters of weapons. But how do they switch between their weapons, their greatsword, their flail? I've always thought it was awesome to be able to use improvised weapons when, like, a type of weapon is the way to damage. And then we break down introductions in Tome of Beasts. Lou Gygax talks about trolls that stop regenerating when they take fire. So weaknesses are something that are in-game, but they're just not for every monster. We break down some existing weaknesses. Is this Ankin, is it Aknox? 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 Am I pronouncing that right? Does anyone know in chat? Is it Aknox? That sounds like a knock-knock joke. Arachnid light Fae that have a mirrored carapace. Action that allows them to project illusionary duplicates. However, because of this, it requires light for the mirror. It doesn't work if they're in darkness. So casting darkness, snuffing out light sources, stops those kind of things. Auroral Hunters, 6-legged aberrations that use sonic vibrations, which is pretty cool. This is that whole kind of like Spider-Man thing. You can use the Shatter spell. And they kind of break down pre-existing ones to give more examples from pieces that we've done. And then we have the actual monster weakness design. And this is where we get into how to do it right, how you may do it wrong, and everything in between. So first off, and I think this is important, it has to be something you can discover. If you just add weaknesses to a monster, what good is that to the party? That's also like making this really deep story as a GM. Sure, that helps you run stuff, but if your players don't have a way to learn it, it doesn't help. And if you're a player, look, players. I love when my players give me a really big, deep background, right? You get this awesome background about where you're from. You grew up as a farmer, you found a weapon in the field, that weapon was magical, you started training in your off hours when you're not tilling the farm, and that training over the days, weeks, months, years prepared you for when your city was attacked. You became a town hero as you defended your city from an invasion of gnolls. Those moments are awesome, right? But unless they come out and play, nobody else around you knows. And if that made you resentful of gnolls and all of a sudden you hate gnolls, but you never explain why to anyone, that background does no service to the story that the group is telling. Same thing with weaknesses. If you don't have a way to give your players the ability to learn a weakness, it's just for you. It's self-serving, and you want it to be serving to the story and the group. So I always say that that's something that make sure that you have it so that everyone can learn it. Where are the eyes? I don't know where the eyes are. That one I think is the vibration one. I think that's the Fey one that hunts you from vibration. What a creepy little thing, isn't it? Be simple for the GM to implement. It shouldn't be a hard weakness. It should be easy. Ghost with salt. Taking the ring from the dead body and then burning the body. Those kind of things. Yeah, the ears look like wings. Not be the default thing adventurers are expected to do in combat. You should still be able to defeat a monster without the weakness. The weakness should just make it quicker. And I'll be honest, the more I GM, the more I want my combats to be quicker and faster. No, 10-round combats are cool once in a while, but overall, they drag. I just got finished running my back-to-back episodes of D-Lance Live, and our combats went really quick. We've really scaled up the damage. I've kept their levels a little below what they should be for the adventure, just like 1 or 2. But they have so much more damage, so much more magical items. I did that as a balancing factor, but the damage is big. I've added a die to everything, because they get to do that. I can spend Takesis points to do stuff in the background, similar to how Doom points work in TOV. And I found that I like those 2 to 3 round combats. It's really fun to have it be deadly and quick and out. And I have a very roleplay heavy group overall. So make sure it's not something you have to do. It should not be abused to avoid trivializing an encounter. They should just assist in what you're doing. They should adhere to the flavor, anatomy, and lore of the monster like we've seen in the ones over here. The thing has a mirror. You turn off the lights. It can't make the duplicates. It should make sense. It should be logical. It should be a Vulcan. Vulcan logic. Make combat where monsters are more interesting. I think anytime, and I think this is probably one of the most important pieces out of this, anytime you can make an encounter more enjoyable for everybody by adding some flavor in GMing or player using terrain or improvised weapons is interesting, and using terrain in certain ways and layer actions in certain ways that aren't just damage dealing but do fun stuff. I love layer actions abilities that do something fun. They don't have to be damage dealing or even a saving throw, just something cool. Are awesome. So these weaknesses should make combat fun. Like doppelgangers, I think, should have weaknesses. Fey in a lot of games, Cold Iron makes them revealed. Other considerations to help develop interesting weaknesses. Is the method for discovery the weakness is interesting? Do you have to find it in a certain way? Is it through trial by fire? Is it from a book? Is it from one local? Does that gathered information roll that you made in the town, asking the right person, does that give you the, I only got away because I threw my silverware at it and I stuck one and it fled. Now you know, whatever this thing, maybe silver is what you need. Now, they may bring silverware, but how funny would that be if it was just that it's a piercing weapon? Right? So these are the kind of things you could do. They could be throwing silverware at it at a low level, thinking that's the right thing to do, but they find out during that combat that like the spoon and stuff doesn't do anything. It has to be something that is pointed, and you can use any piercing weapon to do it, just to make those kind of fun set pieces. I know my players would use silverware. Does exploiting the weakness come with some preparation, risk-reward analysis? Is it something dangerous? Do you have to set a trap, lure it in it? Do you need to go to the grave site of an undead creature and make sure that all the body parts are in there before you burn the grave, salt it, and bury it? Is it a water creature where you need to lure it to the edge of the water so you can lasso it and pull it out so you can weaken it because it's no longer in water for combat because it's too fast? Those are things to think about as you're talking about exploiting the weakness. The monster already has a weakness. Can they be tweaked to add interest? I mean, earlier we talked about the troll and fire. We've heard through history about people adding like acid instead. I've had a troll that swallowed a ring of regeneration and it regenerated into his body and the fire was no longer the solution, but you could see a piece of the ring showing. And if you realize that if you got a called shot or you wanted to do a critical hit, you could pull the ring out, allowing you to use fire again. That was a really fun way to handle a troll. Kind of cool. But sometimes you can ramp up how to make a weakness work. This is just, we're on the first page of this thing. So let's burn through a little bit more here. Does the weakness warrant some kind of sort of offset, buff, or balance? Is it too weak? Does it need more damage somewhere else? Does that weakness totally nullify it? Rust monsters, or sorry, rust on iron golems basically debilitate them. So now they have a breath weapon and they do extra damage. How does the monster react to its susceptible damage type of weakness? Is it a coward? Does it try to take it from you? Those kind of things. And how does the monster react to how it's susceptible to the condition? Like once it gets stabbed, does it flee? Does it burn? Does it light on fire? Does the body burn in the other locations you're fighting the spirit and hit it with salt? Those are kind of the things that you're looking at as you're building this out. Just remember, adding weaknesses to a monster is designed to increase fun at your table. It shouldn't be designed to increase difficulty. I just watched someone talking about Diablo 4 and how some of the monsters in the game, instead of the difficulty being a fun difficulty, they're just annoying. And this is a problem in game design in general, all across the board. A lot of people just make it harder, thinking that that weakness or that power, that difficulty is great. But being shot off screen the entire time with no mechanic to deal with it is not fun. Just like in D&D or in tabletop or whatever it is you're playing, something that is super damaging and there's no way for the players to make a knowledge check after it happens to them once to figure out what's going on, that's not fun. That's just punishing the players for them trying to do the right thing. So think about that as you're going through this stuff, that you aren't making something that's just a pain in the butt for your players, because no one wants that. At least I know I wouldn't want that. And we get into our weakness disclaimer. Before you add new weaknesses to every creature in the game, consider you want to keep things moving. Maybe if it's too complex, you don't use it all the time, that kind of thing. Your world, your rules. This is important. Not all weaknesses will make sense in your campaign. The biology or culture of a certain creature is different from what Tome of Beast 3 has, or maybe perhaps you make different assumptions about the creature or admit a weakness that doesn't work. Make sure it fits what you're running. I've always said if you are running Ravenloft and you're using sun as your weakness for Ravenloft, like, look, dude, there's no sun there. You'd have to have a cleric that's using it, right? But if you're running a game like Waterworld styled and everything's underwater and you're like, their weakness is fire. Bro, we underwater. You can't light them on fire underwater. Those kind of things may not make sense. Yeah, make splash damage for a water. Chlorine, right? Make sure you're following that. Make sure it's your rules. Make sure it fits the set piece. Look at your set piece and build around it. I think these 3 disclaimers are the things I would put there. Those are very important, like when you're designing. And trivializing combat. Weaknesses shouldn't make a combat basically really easy. You want it to be challenging still, but you want it to maybe cut a couple rounds off. You may want to tweak the hit points a little bit if you need them to stay a little longer, like if your weakness does more damage to them. I like weaknesses that don't do more damage. I like weaknesses that allow you to do things like turn off their breath weapon, or let's say the breath weapon on a creature is a 4 through 6, right? And you know that if you shoot it wherever it breathes this breath weapon through and you get that called shot, like you're rolling with disadvantage until you get it. Every time that called shot hits, the recharge goes up 1. So instead of 4 to 6 to 5 to 6, or it's just a 6. If you hit them one more time, it's gone. That's a really fun mechanic for people to be, I'll risk it to not get a breath weapon on me. Things like that. And then discovering weakness. This is super important, everybody. If you don't give your players a way to discover weakness, how are they gonna do it? They can't. Can't do it. Discovery in the moment, that could be a knowledge check. Experimentation, maybe you fight them numerous times and they finally find out what you got to do to exploit it. That's also really good. Once a weakness is discovered, all characters who witnessed it are now aware of it. For example, the party is wandering through an abandoned gnomish dungeon and a gear mass attacks from the darkness. The wizard suddenly casts the grease spell to slow its approach. They might discover the oily grease on the floor nullifies the gearness's rust metal trait. So once you learn it, everyone who is there to witness it knows. I also would have it to where you could write articles and maybe put things in the courier that are in your town if your players are based out of a town. So everyone knows this if they read it. Or maybe it allows them to make a recall knowledge check from a courier if, you know, your city is, let's say your city's a CR 1 or 2 city using cities and towns, right? And every time you write something in the courier, maybe there's like a equivalent to a Van Richten's guide in your area. Maybe there is Madsen's Madness Monsters, whatever it's called. And they write things that they learn from heroes that go out, and you subscribe to it. And anytime it's a 1 or a 2, you can make a quick knowledge check. Oh, was this in one of the articles? But everyone should learn it. It's kind of cool. And then they have a determined table, like a DC, 10 plus the CR of the creature to discover. I've been using that for years. I think that is a genius way to do it. If your creature CR5, it's a 15. It stays within the DCs of abilities. Most things either start at an 8 plus bonuses or a 10 plus bonuses in a 5e base game. Pretty simple to do that, right? And you can even go one step further if you wanted. If the CR isn't enough, you could also tack on rarity of a monster. If something is not seen very often or very unique, you could do a 1 through 5 addition to it, right? If there's an ancient green dragon and there's only one of them in your world and no one has seen it or fought it, you might be adding a +4 or 5 to that DC just because how the heck would they be able to make a check if no one's seen it? And we break it down a little bit more here. Khan does a good job of intelligence, history, investigation, giants and humanoids, arcana, aberrations, constructs, dragons, elementals, fae, oozes, nature, beast dragons, so on and so on. I feel like most parties at home or online, most groups that play together, in some form or fashion, I feel like they use this check already. So I think we're just kind of regrounding that house rule into a rule you can actually look at. But do you all use that at home? I know I do. I've been using knowledge checks for monster understanding for as long as I can remember. Yeah, I think so. I think I've used it since at least 3.0. Maybe it was even a 3.0 back in the day. A rule for it. I don't know. Does anyone remember that? I think it was. Today. That's cool. I was just thinking out loud. On top of that, just this is kind of a nice little piece. There is a note here. You can change the skills associated with the type of monsters at your decision. If you don't have Arcana in your world, you might put it under history instead. That kind of thing. Discovery through research. I love rewarding my players that want to research. When Sam and Dean Winchester are going out, they refer to the book that was left behind by their father. And they look at it to find weaknesses. Or they go to a library. Or they look through old news. What are the old record slides called? Microfilm. They look through a microfilm to see if there's anything in there. They notice the person's never aged. Those moments are awesome. I've even made random tables in the past to add to it in a roll. But they talk about using weaknesses as a quest. This is a great storyline. I like troubles, levels 3 through 4. They break down the idea of a village in trouble by a ferocious Elky, which eats livestock and recently killed a full wagon full of people bringing in supplies. People in the village are growing desperate as food is running low. The mayor hires a group of adventurers to find out and kill the Elky, but warns them that the last group that was hired never returned. They're gone. They probably found Dib. That's just my opinion. If you know who Dib is, you know what I mean. He suggests speaking with the old herbalist that lives at the edge of town for guidance. The adventurer might proceed as follows. And we have a breakdown about what you could do to really make an adventure out of this. I write this way all the time. One day I'm gonna have to do my adventure plot webs. I do plot web adventures for mine, and I highlight like trails. I like really low prep up front to give flexibility in the moment. And then I would like to, from there, I like to use aftermath notes to gather everything that happened at the bottom of the page. Maybe I'll do a note-taking section here for player side and GM side at some point in the future. Maybe I'll do that after Gen Con. Be kind of a cool thing to do for you all. So this idea of using weaknesses in questing, I think this is awesome. We give a 3 to 4, a 6 to 7, a glacial encounter. This is really cool, the glacial crawler, and how to handle these. And like, for example, glacial crawler here, party is invited to find shelter with the nomads, and when they do, they can learn some stuff like limited heat sense. The crawler cannot use blind sight to sense the presence of creatures if they have drunk the Guardian's glorious milk within the past 8 hours. So you have a drink that you can do that cools you down and you can hide from it. You get to learn things to bypass and make this tracking and stalking easier. This is cool. We get into the next topic, which is damage types as weaknesses. We've seen this, vulnerabilities. This is a common thing. If you make your own monsters, you can always hide that vulnerability, and that's a really simple way to make something that is a weakness to a monster that you hide. I think that's cool. Brain Coral, also this artwork. The fuck? What is this? Creepy. Very creepy. And then, of course, they break down synaptic overload. When the brain coral takes lightning damage for the first time on a turn, it must make a Constitution saving throw with a DC equal to the damage taken. On fail, the brain coral can make one less cumulative pseudopod attack because it can't operate all the pseudopods. That's awesome. That's a great way to do it. It's a fun aberration piece. I, for example, we had a huge choker fight. And with chokers, I said that if you dusted them in, there was a mixture when they were making cement in my Victorian horror setting. I said if you dust them with that and wet them, they're not going to be able to move or stretch anymore, and they will lose their reach. So I started dusting with powder and spraying them with, water, and it would absorb in their skin, and they'd lose their elasticity. Those are fun ways you can do things like that. And it's easy once you start doing it to think of things on the fly. We give an example for Vapor Drakes, Dust Grazers, Moonless Hunters, and right here we talk about spell interactions as weaknesses, right? Which is like, how can a spell be the thing that is weak? I had a really fun time. There was a Beholder. Oh, I can't say that, can I? Hive Tyrant. But basically, if you use Detect Magic on it, it was so magically adept that when Detect Magic was used, it would blind randomly one of its eyes. And it would be blind for, I think it was like 1 round or 1d4 rounds. I did that back in like 2nd edition. And it was fun because my people would be using Detect Magic to blind it, hoping it would stop the raid that would be up next. Really fun concept. Done that before. And they talk about, other versions of using magic to stop things. This, though, was the piece that I think I was the happiest with when I was looking through. Social interactions is weakness. It doesn't have to be about combat. Sometimes you can just make it a social encounter. Social encounters are such a fun thing to do. I feel like if you have a group that loves to roleplay and talk, giving them the ability to talk through their stuff. My Monday group is famous for this right now. Serving Hands is in chat. She can attest to the fact that Monday talks their way out of everything. And some parties love doing that. And I think that the social interactions as weakness is pretty cool. So it's not mind control. No matter how many bonuses a character has a charisma, NPCs still have their own free will and goals. If characters have advantage on charisma, persuasion, you can ask something of the creature that it would never do in its right mind. You may not even want to ask for a roll. It might just deny you. But you can do some fun stuff. So they talk about your world, your rules. Not every weakness works all the time. Maybe it's only certain versions. The idea of fool me once. Many social weaknesses fail if used repeatedly because you can't do it so many times, right? Like eventually they just get used to it. So they talk about the apostle. Powerful clerics are often associated with churches and shrines in areas of civilization. An apostle would be more trusting of those who appear to follow their faith. So you show up with a holy symbol, semi-charlatan, right? And that might allow you to talk to them and get rid of the disadvantage, or maybe give the apostle disadvantage against realizing if you are one of them, if you're hiding, or if you are talking to them for information. They talk about Bearfolk, which is one of our back in 5e races, Thunderstomp, and what can be happen with that if you know how to do the lost dance that they have. You can get bonuses to deal with them socially, what you can do with brownies, and so on. Really cool using social things as weaknesses and not hurting them, but giving you advantages to dealing with them. Okay, there's some nightmare fuel on the next page I want to point out. So then we decided, let's take one of our products that we have for these last couple of pages and add weaknesses to monsters that are in our book already for Tome of Beasts 3. So we go things like the Alpine Creeper, the Amphibibolt, the Angel Psychopomp. I love Psychopomps, by the way. Animated Instruments, Animated Awful, and we go through, what is this nightmare fuel? What is this thing? That is frightening. That's like the cryptid not deer. Is that a deer? Nope, not a deer. That's like, is that a seal? Nope, not a seal. Which one is this? Which one is this? Is it this thing? It's gotta be this thing. Oh no, here it is. Bergamon Seal, Pacify Parasite. When a Bergamon Seal is affected by a spell or a effect that cures disease, it cannot use its toothy maw, tendrils, or red actions. At the end of each of its turns, the Bergamon Seal can make a Constitution saving throw, spellcaster's save DC, to end the effect. So you can like close the parasite up, stopping it from being able to do the things it normally does. I did not remember this art in there, but that is frightening. And we go through a series of these creatures for you to be able to add these lovely new weaknesses to creatures in your thing. First off, if you thought a goat was bad before and eats everything, now it can cook its meal. Lycanthrope Were Crocodile, this is a great one. I remember reading this. I actually really enjoyed this one. Moon Metal. If a Were Crocodile takes damage from Silver Weapon, it cannot use its tail action until the end of its next turn as the tail goes limp, because it's that added appendage that it gets when it shifts. That's a fun, easy to do thing. And then you got more nightmare fuel here, in case you didn't have enough. I think that's the Umbral Shambler, if I remember correctly. And this is the concept of the book. You get all of these, and we walk through a bunch of Tome of Beasts 3 to give you ideas. So I'm going to scroll back up. Obviously, we're going to advertise Tome of Beasts 3 and Tales of the Valiant at the end of this, right? So is there one more? Ooh, there is. The 600 new spells for the volume 1 and 2. So let me scroll back up to the top here. Let's just kind of talk about this for a minute. One, how many people out here are GMs that are in the chat today? Do we have a lot of GMs in here? I see a lot of names in here. We got a lot of people in here today. If you're a GM, is this the kind of series, like, does this kind of thing for $4.99, is this something you would pick up as like an impulse buy? Because I know I would. I pick up cheap PDFs and print things when I go to conventions all the time. Monster weaknesses to me is something I file away and keep. And I think the thing I would build around this for players, I would build random tables again for weaknesses for the game. I also think having an archetype or a feat, or in TOV, a talent to go around with someone who has monster lore could be a really cool thing. And on a good roll, you know what its weakness is. But man, could you imagine if it's a secret roll and on a bad roll, they do the wrong thing for that first round that realizes the wrong thing. So that first action where you thought you're supposed to salt the spirit, you learn that spirit is salt's not the answer, and you get just rocked by it because salt's not what you need to do. Those kind of things I think are fun to add into your game. And I think that this specific thing is a great way to make your 5e games a little more leveled up. So I have a couple things to close on today. One, this is probably one of the most important things. If you got the playtest packets, I want to remind everybody, 11:59 Pacific on the July 14th, that is the cutoff for your small folk and kobolds. For those of you who have the playtest packet for the Kickstarter, you know the date. If you missed this, you'll notice it has the core fantasy role-playing. Everything is going to be getting that for open source for people to use. We did it for this one, and things moving forward, you'll see this on a lot of them. TOV or Tales of the Valiant will be stuff that's specific for us. But you're going to get fun things as we remake all of the monsters that you saw in 5e, give them descriptions, give you access to things. But this, if you missed this, watch last week's. And subscribe on YouTube if you haven't yet, because I'm going to be doing more stuff for us on YouTube as we continue. Anytime I got to record something really high resolution, I'll probably be doing some more things over there. And I'm really thinking about doing a GMing series here pretty soon. So if you missed this, look through it. There is some amazing things in here for the new heritages and lineages. It's good. This is really good. This is probably my favorite out of the 4 packets so far. Maybe the monster one and then this one. There's a lot in this to look at. And it's a 4-page one, but I feel like it gave us a ton. And we got our Swobold, a medium-sized kobold, the Dragonkin, which means I'm going to remake our fighter that we have with these rules. I'll really like this. If you missed it, check it out. 14th is your deadline for getting in your surveys. The surveys matter, everybody. We do go through them. We're compiling them as we move through, reprint things in other playtests. Sometimes they get added. And then obviously when we move into the last thing, we're going to take the poll for everybody. We got rid of night vision, went back to dark vision because everybody wanted it. They didn't like a certain tag. That terminology didn't make people happy. People wanted 30-foot movement speed for dwarves. We gave it to you. And the fact that we had the wrong point total for stats, but that doesn't matter. So if you want things like this, check it out and pick up, any of the PDFs or the playtest and make sure that you have them in store so you can play them and enjoy them and look through them. I feel like if you don't, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice. There's some amazing stuff in this. There really, really is. But yeah, that's kind of the thing I want to talk about for everybody and get everybody the thing that they need, the monster weaknesses. Again, if you want to pick up monster weaknesses for yourself, went up last week. It's a $4.99 PDF. Pick that up. And the last thing I want to kind of showcase here, let's go over on the Chrome side of things. We obviously have the monster weaknesses. This is up and ready to go. Tome of Beasts Revised, which is number 1, is already shipping if you're interested in picking that up. The last thing is our monster sale for Monster Madness. I highly recommend picking up Monster Madness if you haven't done that yet. It is a great way to kind of get your 20% off those monster books. But last, Tales of the Valiant website, if you have not checked this out recently, the TOV, you can find all of your ideas for late backing, your preview packets, and your characters examples that we put out at level, I think it's 3. How to get involved, where you can play test, the whole 9 yards about that. But the thing I always point out to everybody, every time, there's 2 major things. The schedule, which is the release schedule. We currently just did the, packet 4, and then we're moving into July. We did the Small Folk and Kobolds, Druid and Ranger, and you're gonna be seeing an alpha come soon. You back the Kickstarter, that will come along with it. We'll be at Gen Con. Then don't forget, pick up your packets below. Feedback, this is the link to your feedback. The diary entries, these diaries are awesome if you haven't read them, for all your design diary stuff. And look through this stuff. Let us know what you want. We're making a game for everyone to play to continue that 5e legacy. So, that's our show today. Is there any questions? We got a couple minutes left, and I feel like I haven't answered questions for you guys. We've been so busy with Tales of the Valiant and everything going on. Is there any questions that I can answer that you've had from going on with reading through playtest packets or things that you picked up recently? Is there anything that I can answer or take back to the Warrens to get you all answers? And while that's going on, I was going to say something else. I just forgot what I was going to say. I don't usually do that. Oh! If you missed the Tales of the Valiant stuff, check us out over on YouTube. I've been answering comments there. If you leave comments in the videos, I've also been taking them back during our weekly meetings to get answers if I don't have answers myself, as I always do. Thank you for my presentation. You're welcome for the presentation. I like doing these things. Is there any books in the past? And if you don't answer to that, it's fine. You can comment it down below in the YouTube video. Is there any books that we already have had published that you would like to see me walk through that we don't already have a video for? Don't say Tales of the Valiant because it's not out yet. But is there any books that you would like me to go through? Is there anything from the Kobold guide you'd like me to do? We've already done the world building guide. We did your dungeon guide. Is there anything you'd like to see us go through for that? Honestly, we did the world building guide. And we built all of what I did for Valiant Soil out of that with that 30-minute spiral build. So is there a book you'd like to see reviewed, that you'd like to see more of, that you've been thinking about picking up, that maybe I haven't touched base on yet in my time that's been here? Is there a article from the blog that you'd like to go over? Anything along those lines? More about Midgard. So I don't have a lot of knowledge on Midgard. I would love to go through it more, but with Tales of the Valiant coming out, I can't say anything. Can't say anything. I can say that the Labyrinth is coming. Is there a certain book from Midgard? Are you a Midgard player, Project? Do you play a lot of Midgard? Is that why you're asking that? Let me write this down. I might be able to get a guest on from Midgard. We have a lot of really good knowledge-based people on it, and I could maybe bring someone on from Midgard. Midgard guest. It's not a bad idea. I'm writing it down on my table. Do you play Midgard? I don't know if it showcases the world building guides. That's a really good question. Because the world building guides, you have to remember, the world building guides are written by a lot of different authors. A lot of authors. Yeah, the Midgard Monday people. That might not be a bad idea. I think we've had one of them on the show before. I know I'm going to be bringing on some more of our partners from TOV. I mean, obviously Wolfgang could always be brought on for that. That might be something we do after Gen Con, maybe? Maybe Gen Con? We could bring one of those things out. Because once TOV goes to print, we're going to have a little bit of time where we can go over other things. We have something really big. Oh, you translate Midgard. Oh, that's awesome, Project. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Thank you. That's super cool. What, may I ask what you translate it for? What language? I'm just curious. When I had on Kuboa, I was asking how they were doing. That's what I thought. It was going to be German. So I was asking them how they're handling doing translation. It's a really interesting process. Translation is, you learn really quickly what words don't work from one language to another and back. There's obviously, there isn't a word for everything in every language. It's kind of cool. I didn't know you did that. That's awesome, man. I will, Midgard Monday. I'll tell you what, Project, if you have somebody who is already a streamer and streams for Midgard Monday, like they have a good cam, a good mic, they like being on camera. If you have someone you recommend, drop me a link in Twitch, and I'd be happy to reach out to them. Maybe we can set something up in the future. That'd be super cool. And I would like to learn more about Midgard because I don't know a lot about it. I've played it a few times, so I just know sections. Like when I ran my stuff for Kobold Press, I learned the Shadow Realms, which the Ebb and Tide book, but that's kind of to go everywhere, but it does have a connection to Midgard area. I've ran the main city before, but I've not ran Midgard itself. Well, with that said, everybody, thank you so much for joining us today. Nice little hour-long one to get us through, talking about monster weaknesses. I'm going to drop some links in here for anyone who doesn't have it. YouTube, click the bell for everything. We will be on there more frequently moving forward. We will also still be over here. Obviously, TOV, if you have missed it and you haven't got it. And then today, our Monster Weakness book. Pick it up, $4.99. Enjoy it. Check out the Monster Madness sale. See if you can't find something 20% off that is good for you. I will see you all next week as we dive into, I believe next week is going to be reviewing the 2 classes. It's going to be a little bit longer video stream as we might build a character during it. I think that would be a lot of fun. Maybe we can build ourselves I wouldn't mind building a gnome or a halfling of some form using the small folk. I think it'd be a lot of fun. So I will see you all next week for Kobold Chat, same time as always. If you are watching this on YouTube right now, comment down below on books that you would like to see me go over on Kobold Chats. We're looking to maybe doing some Midgard stuff in the future. I have some special surprises through the course of July. And if you are here right now, this site's gonna have a video for you to watch. I'm guessing it's gonna be Valiant Soil, but who knows what the algorithm is gonna give you. It might give you something about M&Ms. I don't know. And on this side, there's going to be our subscribe button. Please click the bell, turn on all, because when we go live on YouTube, that is the best way for you to find out. Kobold Chats is every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. I can't wait to see you all next week. Have a great one, and go play some Tales of the Valiant. See you, everybody.